We're here.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Great crew.
So I guess, one of the things I wanted to start with when we sit down with ad meters, you probably heard Rick Suter. You're like, I got the Rick Suter part, but what the heck is ad meter? What you guys just watched and the feeling that you have and the sort of impulse, the love it, the hate it, and the sort of reactions, that's ad meter. We put ratings behind it. It started in 1989. It grew, the digital footprint, everything kept moving. We went from the frogs, the dogs, the horses, Betty White, right? Darth Vader, the little boy starting the car. We land on great ads like this one in 2019 with the NFL. I'm so excited for you guys to be here. We have a great panel this today. And it starts with these two gentlemen that are sitting next to me. When you talk about the great ads and just the campaign, I don't think you can start with a better thing than the NFL and 72 and Sunny. I've said this before. This is like going to Mount Everest and saying, oh, I saw snow. The Super Bowl is the NFL. You can't walk very far without seeing the shield in some form. And it takes on so much more than just that when you talk about the campaigning and the advertising. And this gentleman here, Tim Ellis, who started in 2018 with the NFL, has not just taken that sort of concept of, we're the NFL. He's taken it into new levels that I think is just really exciting. Tim, welcome to the stage, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So I guess the one thing I wanted to do first was start at 2018 and kind of talk about, that general question of like, you're the NFL. Why do you need to advertise? What is the reasoning? And beyond that with you, how did you take that reasoning and make it to what we're seeing today?
Yeah, my mom literally asked me that question. Why do they need to advertise? Why do they need you? Listen, I was quite fortunate at that time. The NFL was struggling. That's probably the best way to say it. Ratings were sagging. A lot of controversy, a lot of tension between the players and the league and the clubs and so forth. And a lot of discussion about how the NFL was a dinosaur going down, all this kind of stuff. So it was a really tough period. And of course, I saw it. I mean, I've always, growing up, I'd been a fan of the NFL, but I was also a fan of great brands, right? And I almost felt like it was a mission that I had to go there and help. You know what I mean? And I literally laid out the entire strategy for the NFL in my first interview. I thought, I'm not holding anything back. I'm going to tell them exactly what I think they need to do. And like within a day, I was seeing Roger Goodell and I was hired. And I think that, what was most important to me was humanizing the NFL and getting the helmets off the players. And I simply called it the helmets off strategy, which was to show the human being behind the helmet and to really have them be the face of the league, to humanize the league, to have a more authentic, more compassionate, and vulnerable, right, face of the league to the rest of the world, and ultimately get behind the players and the things that they really cared about. Get to know them as human beings, not just elite athletes, and find ways to speak in a way that was, respectful and aligned with those gentlemen.
So you have this great plan, but it also is always going to take a little bit of that creative strategy help. And that brings me to the next man over here, Glenn Cole, 72 and Sunny. How important has that been working with a team like Glenn and the sort of creative stuff that they've been able to throw? When you look at that 2019 spot, again, that wasn't just bringing a bunch of football players together. That had concept. It felt like a mini movie where people are just having to be chasing something around. So, Glenn, I want to turn to you. First of all, guys, I want you to know when you're talking about great ad people and the excitement around it, this gentleman actually used to do parodies of ads in high school, in case you wanted to know. So this man, this is a seasoned veteran.
That's a deep pull.
The high school years. We've got a guy here he was parodying ads. So with that type of, like the love of the marketing, how have you been able to blend that and the kind of creative insight to work with someone like Tim, the NFL team? Because again, it's not just your average brand, it's the NFL.
Well, I've never tried to make ads. I really am inspired by films and any sort of emotionally engaging content, at whatever length. So when you say mini movie, first of all, thank you. That is what was pitched. It is what we both had an ambition for, and hopefully pulled off. It even, I think, created a template that we followed in the years after. You probably noticed some of the ads that we stuck with 2 minutes or 90 seconds, which just to the average viewer, you start to feel like this is a different thing when you're watching. Everybody has like a 30-second inner timer or 60-second timer. So the opportunity to do that in the NFL is one of the joys and appreciations I have for working with them. And then, of course, yes, when you come up in advertising, you want to make a Super Bowl ad. Like that's like a dream. There's only so many 60 of them each year. But it's funny now that we're here doing them regularly. I look at the ambition I have for them is like what change are we going to make in the world? Because 200 million people in one go, there's just nothing else that does that. And the NFL, being the institution that it is, arguably has more ability to unify a very divided country and world than any entity. So that trophy looks fucking awesome. I want to get the trophy, but we also want to make some impact in the world. And sometimes it's a mini movie, and sometimes, I guess we're going to show later, it's not.
Yeah. So, and that's one thing interesting I always say when you're looking at a photograph of somebody that took of you, it has a special meaning. So seeing that ad now, this many years later, and the impact it had, do you guys see just the ad and that mini movie, or in your mind, are you guys thinking about all the production and storyboarding and everything that went behind it? Like, is it hard just to see that as the vision, or are you thinking about the meetings and the long nights, and how does that play? Because again, for both of you, Tim, you're talking about that was just 1 year after you were put in charge of this sort of like major
less
thing.
than a year.
Less than a year. Sorry. Yeah. The story.
Yeah. A few months.
Sure.
I mean, listen, what was interesting about that, I think it's important. It's an important message this week as we think about the ads are going to come on the Super Bowl in just a few days here. And that is taking some risks, right? A lot of people out there, they're constantly looking to sort of copy what's been done so they can be successful with their own brand. And let's face it, it's a little scary to go out with an ad on the Super Bowl.
Sure.
And it should be scary, right?
Yeah.
I think these guys came up with this big idea, and I'm like, we got to do this. We have to do this. There was hardly any time left. We only had like 6-7 weeks left to do that ad. And up until that time, the NFL had only used maybe 2 or 3, 4 players at most for any ad. And so I went to the head of football operations, and I said, I need 65 players. And they said, well, did you say 6 or 5? Because that's a lot.
6, 7.
I said, no. I said 65. And it was such an audacious goal that it got everybody rallied and excited.
Yeah.
And I think just by bringing all these guys together, and then by starting to assemble all the great players from the past and in the current list, and then to ensure that it was modern and youthful and looking ahead. So if you look at that ad, it wasn't just about looking behind and celebrating the past of the NFL. It was about looking ahead. You had influencers and creators and gamers in there. You had a young woman playing tackle football at the very end, who's taking the ball forward, which was very important, right? Yep. So it was really a way for us to sort of show the way for the next 100 years. And then these guys, of course, executed the hell out of it and brought it to life. But so for me, when I look at it, it's still the same basic strategy that we employed 7.5 years ago, which is to humanize the league, make it modern, progressive, and keep opening up your arms wider and wider and letting more people in.
Glenn, you followed this path with him coming from 2019, and we come into obviously through 2020 and almost what starts this new world that we're all living in, where it's this, it's tough times. The world changed. And keeping in mind with, Tim, the way we talk about culturally relevant. Again, it's not just a bunch of players out there banging into each other saying, hey, we're the NFL, here's our commercial. You guys really started to put a footprint into things with your ads, live activations, looking at, the girls' flag football movement, which is incredible. But it kind of takes us to the next spot that I want to show that I think is probably one of the most powerful all the time. If we can queue up somebody from 2025. It's such an incredible, and the flow of it and everything that you guys did there. Glenn, I wanted to start with you. As far as that concept and bring together, what were the original ways that you started to think about this? Obviously, knowing that where the Super Bowl was going to be and all the location stuff, how did 72 and Sunny sort of take this thing that Tim was starting to build full force at this point to create something like that?
Well, we have the privilege, thanks to Tim, of having 2 spots in each Super Bowl for a message. And so every year there's one that supports Inspire Change, which is in support of all the programs that the league gets behind for social justice and all the other nonprofits. And then there's what we call a Joy of Football ad, which might have been like the ballroom spot in Inspire Big Ones. This was actually answering the brief of the Inspire Change ad. And normally we want that to perform well, but it's like a nonprofit, and if you're in the creative field, there's an assumption that it'll hit to a certain height, but it doesn't kind of compete with the big entertainment grade Super Bowl ads. And it was a joy to see was how people responded to it like it was the ad, like it. And I think that's because the topic hit the zeitgeist. And so you asked about creating it. A lot of what we do is listen to what's going on in the world and in culture until the last possible minute. And then we concept and then we make really quick. We're always the last people to make the ad.
Yep.
Tim is giving me revisions for our ad an hour ago at lunch. We have to ship it later today, I think. Because we're trying to be as relevant and touch people where they are now as possible. So I think that's why that one came out the way it did. It was inspired by a talk that Reverend Jesse Jackson gave to some kids on an episode of Sesame Street back in the 70s, which I'm sharing that because about the creative process. A lot of times in the creative field, you can think the job is stare at the ceiling, come up with something cool, which a lot of people think it is, and it is at times. We just go in and try to learn. So Tim brought some of the organizations Tim and his team brought the organizations that we needed to support to the front, Big Brothers Big Sisters and some others, and we just started researching, and then that emerged, and the leap kind of made it, the creative leap kind of made itself.
I mean, and using the platform, the Super Bowl as a force for good, is incredibly effective because obviously the audience, and there's no other opportunity where people are literally leaning in, watching what you're going to put on air, right? And so you may have noticed in there, Big Brothers Big Sisters of America was quite prominent in the beginning of that ad, and that kicked off a whole campaign that we did together with them at the NFL. We called the Big Draft. It started at Super Bowl with that commercial, then went all the way to the NFL draft, and then they used the draft to recruit new mentors. Well, Big Brothers Big Sisters have had 30,000 kids on their wait list to get a mentor for decades. And between the Super Bowl and the draft with that campaign and that ad, we took off 10,000 kids off that. And they had...
Yeah.
Right?
Woo! So
impact.
Literally a third, right? So I think this is not just trying to make people feel good about the NFL. It's really about changing our communities, changing lives, and having an impact with our voice and our platform. So we talk about being a force for good, but we literally are changing lives and in some ways saving lives.
I think about the modernization, which you talk about helmet off. I don't think you could find a more incredible arc to be sitting here right now with a Sesame Street reference that was just thrown in. I don't know about you. Elmo might be a Seahawks fan. He might be a Patriots fan. I don't know. But that's such an impressive thing. And one of the most exciting parts about getting to talk to both of you today, obviously going through the past, starting with your journey of 2018 and with Glenn coming on, moving forward through 2019 to the 2025 ads, some of the great things that we've seen. Why we're here right now, I don't even think it would do me justice to cue this up. I'd rather have you guys. The Marketing Hall of Fame inductee right here, Tim Ellis. I want him to take the reins on this one. So Tim, you go ahead and you tell us what we're about to see here.
So this is really interesting because if you just saw that ad that we ran there last year, somebody, and then you may have seen we've already started running it during the beginning of the playoffs. I am special. You are special. And this ad right here that you're going to see in a moment, which is going to be the debut of our ad, nobody's seen it except for us, is all about mentoring and coaching, right? So our youth coaches, and not just for football, but for any sport, really, again, it's got a multiplier effect on our communities and the individuals, right? So coaches make a huge difference in children's lives and in players' lives. Like, for example, I love going to the draft because I love seeing these guys with their dreams realized, and they always bring their youth coach with them, right? We allow them to bring a coach, and they bring their youth coach with them because they've had such an impact in their lives and because they've mentored them and they've really given them opportunities they wouldn't have had. So this ad is all about the power of mentoring and the power of coaching on a child. And I think it's just brought to life in a very, very beautiful way. And so on the one hand, it's not really our cause ad, and I wouldn't say it's our, joy of football ad.
Sure.
But it is a very earnest and I think a very important message to deliver. And I think it fits really nicely with You Are Special and with somebody that we did before. So the importance of mentoring and coaching.
I have to take the role of covering Sammy. I'm not sure she's here, and Megan. We can't have phones recording this one. I know the cameras are going to record, but this is not, other than this showing, you'll see it right before Bad Bunny goes on Sunday. So this is it.
Glenn, I mean, this is where we're fresh is 2026. Talk us through what we looked at through Tim's vision. Where did 72 and Sunny come in and kind of turn a little bit of magic on this thing?
Part of the beautifully sloppy process in this partnership is sharing things on text or email or over drinks and dinners over the years where you kind of want to do a story about a thing, but there's never the right moment. Tim and I have been talking about doing something with or for coaches for years now. And the reason, first of all, that we did it this year is, again, trying to feel the zeitgeist out right up through. I don't even think we landed this until in December.
Wow.
So we just shot it. Apparently it's not finished. I have to revise the end titles today. Potentially, maybe not. Everybody seemed to like it. But I tell you what, the reason I think we never could nail the coaching story is everybody's got a great coaching story. Everybody has a great, whether you are a coach or somebody left an impression on you or gave you a life mantra. But making an ad that's Super Bowl caliber out of that is fucking hard, man. I tried for like 3 years and couldn't pull it off.
Right.
And then this year, actually, one of our creative directors, Gerardo, he proposed, I think we just got to flip it and be about the kid, the result of the coaching, and get in the room and get in his head and pitch. I think it's about belief and giving people, reminding people that belief comes from you. It doesn't need to come from outside of you. Self-belief is important, which I think, by the way, a lot of adults would appreciate right now also, given everything outside of us that seems crazy. So that was the origin of it. And once you're telling a story about a boy in his bedroom inspired by a coach, the story kind of writes itself to a degree. I mean, it didn't write itself. A lot of long hours. But that essentially was the genesis of it.
And we had real commitment, right? I mean, there are several times over the last several years where we kept working an idea and working it, and it wasn't getting any better. And then the two of us, and even like sometimes where it's getting scary, like the amount of time we had left, and the two of us just kind of like talked to each other and said, it's not getting any better. We should drop it. We should put it down and do something else.
Yeah.
And that is a big risk, right? Like to put something down like that and start all over at the last minute just because you want something awesome it takes a lot of courage, right? And I think, on this one, we have been working on it for a long time and just, it wasn't getting any better. It's just that we couldn't quite nail it, right? And there was that point where he said, should we put it down? And then we just agreed, no, we're going to keep going. We're going to burn the boats and we're going to keep going. And ultimately, it paid off. And I think, again, taking risks, particularly in the Super Bowl, I think is really important. And not giving up until you find something that you know is really going to move people is again, important. I think, ultimately, the reason I love this job so much is that I get a chance to put these ads out with these guys that will literally change people's hearts.
Sure.
And get them to think differently about things.
And to listen to that passion, they always say some of the cliches, there's many ways to frame this, but consistency wins the race. There's the commonality. There's the sort of brotherhood. Listening to you guys talk right now, it sounds like we're back in college where it's like he's texting you, you're going out on drinks. This might not be the actual cut. We'll talk about it later, TY, all that stuff.
Should be final.
How much is the relationship that you've built with him, if you look back from your time in 2018 until now, having that sort of Glenn knows you to be able to create these types of things. I mean, would that have been something you could have even done back in 2019 where you're still feeling each other out, 2018, things like that? Like, how much has that relationship arc kind of changed what we're seeing now with the NFL and the stuff that you guys are doing moving forward? And just with everything, too, from, commercials beyond, but within the creative scope working with Glenn.
I think it's everything. I mean, I really do. I think that, this isn't a criticism of anybody else in the industry, but I never really wanted to do just transactional relationships with agencies. I wanted to have a strong partnership-based relationship where there's real trust, right? And I think that we would not have been able to do really anything that we've done together without that kind of just openness and trust in each other. And let's face it, it radiates across all of our teams. Like, I know my team has trust in his team and the same thing. And we're open about stuff. And we're reminding each other all the time about just, not getting stuck into things just because maybe they started here, right? Like being willing to have an openness about even like the last line of an ad that we're looking at right now.
Right.
We're still like talking about the last day we have to ship, but that's because we have that open, trusting relationship. And I think that level of honesty, being able to say what you really think without, it's like having a big family dinner where you can argue and debate and all that, but you still love each other, right? At the end of the day, you're in it together. So you want to have that open, and sometimes we debate like hell. I even get mad and he gets mad at me and whatever, but we find our way and our teams find their way. And ultimately, I think the work is the better for it.
I love that. Glenn, to you, again, when people talk about within the industry speak, when you're talking 72 and Sunny, obviously it's an agency that people know. It goes outside the NFL. But when you talk about everything he just said and the working relationship and the frustrations and the humor and the just energy that you guys have, what has it done to help you as a sort of creative that thinks in the sort of terms of mini films as opposed to advertising and sort of your experience and everything? Like, how has that helped you grow and helped the agency grow? I mean, your name's on it. It's not just, it's something that you're moving and growing. So how do you take growing 72 and Sunny with the NFL kind of in lockstep?
Well, first of all, my name is not on it, and that was the first choice to make because it's not.
It's not Glenn and Sunny?
And I'm not Glenn or John or any other founder. It's whoever's on the rocket ship.
Sure.
Free to grab the wheel. But I say that because although I personally do like making mini movies, not everybody in the company does. It's not a house style. I think when you have an ad agency or a creative company, you can find yourself drawn to a creative style. We've resisted that because it's really not about us and what we make. It's about what the brand is and their audience or fans or the business objective is that really should drive things. But I will say I've learned, like, Tim is a creative human being. Like the C and CMO is creative person. And so that makes it a lot easier. He also is clear about that with his team and with our team. Like, I value creativity. I see the value of it. So that kind of levels things already. Not every client does that, but that's one of the beautiful things that creates trust here. And Tim's even outside of this examples he gave, he'll tell us things like, just advice on how to present, or how they evaluate ideas really, really, really. And those things have shaped our culture and our creative way of working. So I will say that in the end, I used to feel so much pressure in this job or in this relationship because, you want to have like the idea that they buy and that everybody loves.
Right.
And now I feel like, well, if we just bring the right thinking and put it in the middle of the table and don't give a fuck, who cares at what side, not client side and agency side, we're all just here. Everybody make this thing as good as it can be. The best thing will show up. And then it's on me, it's also on him. And so if you're asking what does it mean for 72 and Sunny, I think that's what it means to work there. Is that's our approach. It's largely formed by this relationship.
Tim, what's next? That's always the best thing. We're seeing this. I mean, I hear you got a Super Bowl, right? That's what we're.
There's something. There's a game coming in a couple.
Yeah, you got that game. Remind me, who's it? The Seahawks and the Padres?
Something. Did you say Padres? Is that what you said? This guy, you didn't know.
I don't hate
this guy
New
is
England.
a obnoxious Seahawks fan.
What the fuck, dude? From Seattle.
In my research, I saw a Seattle Seahawks fan. I was like, do we really want
It
to on the
happens.
stage?
Yeah.
Like, how many?
They're pretty good.
12, man. This is a small venue. But no, Glenn,
I won't tell you which team's mine because I'm not allowed to have a team.
okay.
Well,
But I will.
you're a little
But I will
obnoxious
tell
about
you
it.
that
You're a little
we-
obnoxious about the 49er thing.
Yeah, but we did have a little game against each other at the shoot, and we had to literally separate.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was not going to be good.
That's a true story.
That's a true story. But listen, I think we have been successful at the NFL by this sort of very simple strategy of continuing to open up our arms and bring in more cultures, bring in different ways of thinking. And, as an example, I think having a Latina for the first time be a star of a football Super Bowl commercial,
Sure.
flag football,
Yeah.
was a huge moment. Speaking Spanish, right? It was a huge moment.
Right? Yeah.
And we're all super pumped about Bad Bunny coming to.
Anyone here from Ghana? We were in
But
Ghana.
you'll also notice that everything we do around our Latino programs, we integrate in everything we do mainstream, right? Because we just think it makes the NFL more interesting, better, more inclusive. having girls and women at the forefront of everything we do and making stars and elite athletes with women flag football players is just, another part of that strategy. We have been welcoming in and doing ads specifically for members of the NFL who are from the LGBTQ community, and we just continue to open up our arms and bring more people in. And I think at a time when it feels like the world is like, trying to push people out, we're trying to open up our arms and bring people in. And I think that ultimately is what I'm looking for in the coming years, to just make the NFL bigger, broader, more expansive, and more interesting.
The emotion in the way that you talk about this, and just it goes so much beyond the ads and everything and the campaigns. If I had you guys in an elevator with a minute pitch, everyone here is talking commercials and they always want to know about those great concepts. If we were in that elevator with a minute to go, how would you guys sort of outline what does make a good partnership like this? And, they fall flat. Every time we see these types of things, there's people that think they have it, but they don't. You guys do. If we're in that elevator, what would you, if someone came in and they're like, Tim, Glenn, how do you do this? What would your answer be?
It does not happen in the conference room. It happens between people. You got to connect with people emotionally, and you got to start with your partners. You got to care about their lives, care about what they care about, and hopefully they do it in return. And once you establish that, then you can go try and do something special.
Yeah. Hey, listen, we all have very tough jobs. It's a complex world. Certainly the industry of marketing continues to become more and more complex. I think if you can really try to shut all that stuff out and just focus on making the work better. Like, I know he wants to make the work better. That's all he cares about. He knows I want to make the work better. That's all I care about. Yeah, I got a lot of noise. I got a lot of pressure. There's lots of things that I have to, I lose sleep over at night. But at the end of the day, I spend every ounce of my energy just trying to make the work better. And to me, that's how it's done.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tim Ellis, Glenn Cole, the NFL 72 and Sunny. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being up here. Such a great conversation. And again, best of luck in 2026 and beyond.
Become a volunteer coach. There's a coaching shortage. Be a coach, y'all.